The time will soon come when we must recite the cleansing incantation upon the darkness of the mountain. Are you prepared for this?
I believe so, yes. It's still a very daunting thing to do, but it has to be done. Otherwise, the disappearances and I guess these possessions will only increase tenfold. The red moon is in, I don't know, 2 weeks or so, and so I'm anxious that it's just so close.
Then let's hope that we can do this soon. We know the path to the entrance, and we know the dangers of being caught. This demonic spirit must be banished at all cost.
Right. I agree, sir. Thanks to the Mystica Obscura Foundation, they've given us books and documents that involve cleansing incantations and rites of blessings. They've recently been in contact with us because they see how much danger we're in presently. From all the ethereal whisperings and hidden messages we've heard, the Foundation is highlighting the perils of Potter's Hill.
With their support and courageous hearts, we should be able to rid this problem. It also means we can return to our regular, occasional entries that are not as well malevolent.
Absolutely. Recently, the entities have been part of our entries have not really enjoyed our presence. If the entries stop after the next couple of sessions, well, it'll mean things went poorly, as somber as it sounds.
Dealing with the supernatural can be quite a somber topic. Hearing voices of the ethereal can cause most people to go insane. You've held up very well, Apprentice Emmett. I applaud your effort for staying for so long.
Uh, Thank you, sir. I just want to help these people, especially with the paranormal, a thing that most people tend to turn away from.
Or consider them to be mere folk tales or part of mythology. Fictional books or films of horror have swayed the minds of regular people to make them terrified of the unknown. Perhaps that's the reason why they make them.
I'd agree with that, yeah. I suppose we better get into the entry then. This one revolves around a local legend that actually proved to be a dark truth. Sometimes looking for fun in the wrong way can end up with terrible consequences. Uh, um, well, I guess these voices won't stop. I'm not sure what they meant this time, however.
Nothing to worry about. It seems like some passing entities have emotions of their past selves that they can't let go of.
Well, yeah, I suppose so.
Let's delve into our entry now before we get too carried away.
Um, right, yes. My apologies. This entry centers around three friends who go by the names of Ryan, Derek, and Carrie. Though this occurred about 5 months ago, we haven't received this entry until now. Again, I'm not sure why the Foundation keeps hiding certain files from us, but it is our task to repeat the stories in order to stop this witch cult. This entry centers mainly around a piece of local folklore that proved to be true, at least for this group of friends. Other locals of Potter's Hill still claim it didn't happen the way that Ryan told everyone, but each suspicion is beginning to morph into truth. So perhaps this really did happen, and if it did, well, then we'll do our best to avoid this crossroad outside of the town. This incident started when Ryan called up his friends Derek and Carrie, who were a couple at the time, and told them about a certain local myth surrounding the hillside crossroads. The myth goes as follows. Going back around 20 years, there was a terrible car crash where the collision of two cars caused a very gruesome death of Amelia Grayson. After her funeral, which was a closed casket one because of her mangled body at the scene of death, it is said that many members of her family began to see her spiritual form at the very spot of her death. A shadow here or a distant voice there. At first, they thought she had come back to say her last goodbyes to everyone she knew and loved. But when she began to appear only at night, or demand dark requests, the family grew worried that the spirit wasn't really Amelia after all. Eventually, the Grayson family chose to ignore her death location and where a small wooden cross would remain untouched for many years. However, despite the many cars driving by or the constant weather of rain or snow over the next few years, that same wooden cross would remain in the same condition, almost like new, as if it were barely placed there the day before. A rumor of Amelia started to grow about 5 years after her death. Disappearances along the road were popping up. The odd thing about these vanishings was that it always involved couples. Cars stalled in the middle of the crossroads at night, where the couple would be stranded there. The spirit of Amelia would then appear, and with a ferocious vengeance, whisk them away to, well, who knows where. The myth continues that the spirit of Amelia takes the faces of women to restore her beauty, and she takes the men to keep with her forever. Some blood has been seen at the vanishing sites, along with their empty and sometimes still running car, but the bodies of these couples have never been found. Finally, the myth ends that in order to summon Amelia yourself, if you are so brave, you can perform a few simple steps. First, drive out onto the crossroads before sunset, and park your car at the center of the roads. Since no one really drives out there anymore out of fear, you should be fine with watching for traffic. Second, walk up to the wooden cross and call out to Amelia's spirit. It doesn't have to be in a specific direction, just so long as you touch that wood. Third, wait until sunset in your car and watch the sun go down. Once this happens, keep a watch in the fields that surround the roads. The figure of Amelia appears in the tall grass, waiting for daring adventurers to come close to her. When this happens, start your car and immediately drive away. If your car doesn't start and it won't budge, run. This summoning ritual is not to be performed by the unprepared. Without the correct items of divine protection, those who try to summon Amelia's spirit will disappear like the rest. This kind of local folklore bled through the town of Potter's Hill year after Amelia's death. The three friends of the story were in their second year of college when they heard about this tale. Originally from Potter's Hill, the friends had dreams of moving away, but each summer they were brought back to the town, like a sense of urgency in their hearts that they needed to come back. Eventually, the friends met together one day for old time's sake, and once they all agreed they'd heard the haunting story of Amelia one way or another, they chose to try the challenge out for themselves. After all, it was just folklore, right? Just another piece of mysterious layers of a strange town. It was on a Saturday evening that the friends met together and piled into Derek's car to see if these legends were true or just tall tales. It was just before sunset when they reached the infamous crossroads. Just driving over the hill and seeing the roads before them gave the friends instant chills. The previous banters and jokes along the way there had stopped instantly. But Derek continued driving and parked the car directly in the center of the crossroads. Carrie was the quietest among the three. She looked in every direction as if expecting some spectral image of an old woman to pop up and scare them away from their daring adventure. Even as they were parked, she said nothing but kept her eyes open. Ryan felt as if his words were stuck in his throat, trying to recite the steps so that everyone in the car could understand them. Derek got out of the car first, announcing that they all needed to go up and touch the wooden cross where Amelia's scene of death occurred. Both Ryan and Carrie were hesitant, but they had come all this way for the dare. They couldn't stop now. Silently, the friends approached the wooden cross and stood there for a moment. It was true. The wood appeared like it had barely been dug into the ground that day. No sign of weather-worn cracks or loose splinters. Even the ground underneath was fresh green. It was an odd sight to see, but the friends knelt down and placed their hands on the wooden cross. And as they did, they called out to Amelia, announcing their presence and asking for hers to appear before them. They looked up to see that the sun was just about to set, and they sprinted back to their car. No words were shared as they ran back. The sensation that something was already there and watching them was in their panicked breaths. Slamming the doors shut and locking them, the friends were breathing heavily as they watched the last light of the day fade. The tall grass of the fields swayed side to side, suddenly moving quicker while the wind picked up. The howls of the night air made the friends uneasy at once. Their hearts pounded as they gazed through the fields, waiting to see if anything would show up. Derek and Carrie watched the fields ahead, while Ryan looked behind. There wasn't anything yet, but once the sun was completely down and the night had just begun, that was when Ryan spotted something. Rather than ahead of them, which Derek and Carrie thought it would be, as the wooden cross was right there, Ryan saw not with his own eyes, but in the mirror of the car, a misty black figure. Hidden in the waving tall grass, the figure appeared and disappeared in quick vanishing moments, allowing the grass to cover its movements. It was so quick that Ryan could barely react. His eyes were glued to the mirror as the misty figure crept closer to the car. He could see wavy black hair now, and a pair of glowing white eyes, never blinking, and focusing on the friends, and on him. Ryan barely let out a panicked report when his body was suddenly held down by an invisible force, and his words were silenced. The screams were silent, even as he tried to shout. Cold hands gripped his wrists and ankles while he was trapped. He was forced to watch what happened. Once Derek and Carrie whipped around to see Ryan struggling with himself, they saw the misty figure of Amelia glide towards the car, almost right against the back window now. With trembling hands, Derek fumbled for the keys and attempted to start the car. Sputters from the engine. It turned over and over. Derek swore under his breath while Carrie yelled at him to hurry up. The shadowy figure drifted over to the car now and, with an unusual, jerky movement, poked her head above to peek inside. Derek and Carrie yelled at such a horrific sight. Ryan screamed too, but nothing was inside. Derek and Carrie yelled at such a horrific sight. The shadowy figure... The shadowy figure drifted over to the car now, and with an unusual jerky movement, poked her head above to peek inside. Derek and Carrie yelled at such a horrific sight. Ryan screamed too, but nothing was heard. What they all saw was the mangled face of a younger woman. Half of her face was sunken in, like a weight had smashed into her face and carved a crater into the skull. Loose skin hung from a bloody patch of pulsing muscles. Her once visible eye was bloodshot and unblinking. Her open mouth was nothing but a jawbone and scattered teeth. As the misty figure opened its mouth, it made an awful wheezing sound, as if it were sucking in the night air itself. Instead, Derek froze in place and suddenly slumped in the seat. Carrie shook him to wake up, but nothing worked. The figure breathed in again. From Derek's mouth, a thin wave of faint blue light connected from him to the figure. Ryan couldn't believe it, but he swore he saw the same figure as Derek, but in that same faint blue light, being dragged towards the burial grounds of Amelia. As this unfolded, the figure crashed its blackened and taloned hands straight through the glass and grasped at the throat of Carrie. Pulling through the shattered glass, the figure dragged Carrie over through the car and towards her grave. Ryan was still stuck, but he could hear the desperate cries of his friends, begging to be let go and crying for Ryan to help. But the more he struggled, the more the cold hands would freeze his body, sending sharp, icy touches like blade cuts all across his chest and back. Once the cries of Carrie began to lessen, he looked up one last time to see the figure of Amelia taking the struggling body of Carrie and forcing her into the very grounds of Amelia's marker. Before it disappeared, the figure snapped its mangled head back at Ryan, pointing its taloned fingers at him. Ryan claims that he heard the voice of Amelia in his head, demanding that he should never return or else receive the same fate as his friends. The car was suddenly turned on, and the body of Derek fell out of the car. Thick vines came from under the earth and swallowed Derek into the ground, never to be seen again. Ryan's body was released, and he gasped for breath. The headlights shined upon the wooden cross again, and all around him was silent, except for the running engine. Ryan panicked and climbed into the driver's seat, speeding away as fast as he could. But even as he drove away, he looked behind him in the mirror and guessed that he saw the last vines snake their way into the earth, making sure that neither Derek nor Cassie would ever be found. Before going back home, Ryan stopped the car and wept. He cried for what seemed like hours. Childhood friends, years of close bonding, all gone in one night. Ryan returned to college, but not the same as he once was. He became sullen, depressed, and his mood slunk into a dark pit that never recovered. Failing his classes, Ryan went back to his parents. This was a few months ago, and his appearances have not been cited since. Another troubling and very sad outcome of curiosity.
Some parts of folklore may prove to be true. This spirit of Amelia seems to be a demonic force masquerading as the thought of Amelia, hoping to drag unfortunate victims closer to its hunting grounds.
I thought so too, sir. Even with local legends, I'd rather be, safe than sorry. It's very sad to know this outcome. I'm sure Ryan is having such a difficult time dealing with this, if he's still out there.
Tempting dark forces to come forward without knowing what it is, and without protection, is more than just a simple dare. It's dealing with these forces that know all about our human nature, while we know the bare minimum of what they are through guesses and speculations. Our best hope now is that Ryan is doing fine and is under constant watch. Otherwise, he will be the next victim caused by curiosity.
At least we know to avoid these roads. There's so many places around the town to avoid now. Doesn't that seem odd?
I suppose that is. This demonic entity that the witch cult worships controls lesser demons. Because of this, and from what we've been reporting, it may be that they are cornering specific locations and trap unfortunate victims by thinning the boundaries, which is why we must be successful in reciting our cleansing incantations.
Another ritual?
We have less time than I thought. This worries me.
What should we do?
Prepare for the worst. Our final confrontation lies ahead, much too soon.